He has the power to create any weapon, making him half god. 35 years ago, a mysterious new continent called Magmell appeared from nowhere. It was a magical place full of unfamiliar plants, animals, and minerals waiting to be discovered. Many brave adventurers set out to explore this new continent, daring to dream of becoming wealthy and successful. A group of adventurers were on a journey to become rich and encountered a pack of wild beasts. Their leader boldly declared himself the king of this new land before fearlessly charging into battle. But no matter how brave the adventurers were, they were outnumbered and quickly beaten by the creatures. When all hope seemed lost, a young man named Inyo rescued them. Inyo was an angler, a search and rescue specialist, and it was his job to protect and rescue dumb explorers just like these from the continent. He has the powers of a latcher, the ability to create any object he can imagine. All he needs to know is the internal mechanics and material composition of the object, and he can make it come to life. Inyo had no memories of his past. He didn't know if his parents had left him or if they had passed away. But his life changed when he met his master Shuin. Shuin had lost his family in a devastating accident, and he was still mourning his inability to protect them. Yet, when he found Inyo, he welcomed the young boy into his life, treating him like his own son. Inyo was an eager learner, and it was Shuin who taught him how to use his latcher powers and trained him to become an amazing angler. But he never allowed Inyo to fight any monsters. One day, on a daring mission to rescue some adventurers, Inyo encountered something unexpected. It was an adorable creature, almost like a cat. Inyo couldn't resist taking it home with him. Inyo quickly became attached to the animal he'd named Toto. But Shuin didn't seem to like Toto, always looking at it with a threatening gaze. Despite this, Inyo treasured his newfound companion, training his abilities and having fun with Toto during his days. It was his first experience of having a friend. Inyo and Toto were out on a walk in the woods when they suddenly heard a loud scream for help. When they came closer, they saw an adventurer who had stepped into a trap and was in need of rescue. Inyo quickly understood the situation. The man had set the trap to lure and capture small monsters to sell for a profit. The man pointed his gun at Inyo, but before he could act, Toto stepped up and attacked the man's leg. Inyo watched in horror as Toto suddenly began to shake and grow in size, transforming into a gigantic monster. With one swift movement, Toto deleted the injured adventurer and roared menacingly in Inyo's direction. Inyo was completely stunned and couldn't move, only able to watch as Toto feasted on the body of the adventurer. Inyo couldn't comprehend why Toto had done this, but the monstrous figure simply stared deep into his eyes, deciding that Inyo was its next prey. Just in time, Shuin arrived to save Inyo. He revealed that Toto was a monster who transforms into a powerful form after drinking human blood. Toto attacked them, but they managed to dodge his attack. Shuin used his power to create a sword, but Inyo held him back. He was the one who had taken Toto in, and it was his responsibility to take him out. Inyo had created his own sword and was ready to fight against Toto. He was determined to prove himself and win the battle, but Toto was faster and dealt a mighty blow, sending Inyo flying. Inyo felt the strength drain from him, and his mind flooded with memories of the good times he had shared with Toto. As each fond recollection played in his head, Toto stepped closer and closer. Finally, Toto raises his pawn to strike. But Inyo is not willing to die. He summons his sword and slices Toto's neck. He slumps down after the fight, his mind racing as he tries to comprehend what had just happened. How had everything become like this? But then Shuin steps closer, comforting his heart and reminding him that it wasn't his fault, and that he had fought bravely against his first monster. Since then, Shuin became harsher with Inyo's training, until the arrival of one fateful day when everything changed. Shuin told Inyo that it was time for him to return to the human continent, and that he no longer needed to train. Inyo asked if they would ever meet again, but was handed a picture of a young cute girl instead. Shuin looked Inyo in the eye and made him promise that if he ever met her, he must protect her with his life. After Shuin's departure, Inyo became an official angler and was investigating a case of captured monsters. Whilst taking a nap on top of a monstrous creature, Inyo was suddenly jolted awake by the sound of an old man's voice. Burton, the old man, was demanding that a young girl kill the monster, or he would torture her with the electric collar she has on. Inyo decided to intervene, but as he stepped forward, he received an elbow to the face. He quickly got back up again as Burton shouted, demanding to know how he got on top of the monster and to stop disturbing his experiment. Inyo explains he's on top of the monster because monsters don't attack humans that are stronger than them. The old man didn't care about nonsense and cruelly ordered the young girl, whom he called Number 0, to capture Inyo. Afraid of being tortured again, The girl sadly put her hands around Inyo's neck. But then, Inyo realized it was the same girl his master had told him to protect with his life. Tears were streaming down her face. She looked at him with despair in her eyes. Inyo didn't want her to be scared, so he reached out and patted her head to comfort her. She didn't understand what he was doing, but he smiled and told her that someone had asked him to find and protect her. Burton repeated the order, but Zero didn't move. He was about to activate the torture collar, but Inyo used his power to create a hand, and uses it to remove the torture remote and punch the old man before escaping with her. 4 years have passed since he saved Zero. Inyo did his best to protect and teach the girl he had taken in, helping her to learn her Latcher powers. Little did he know that these special abilities would prove useful during his missions. Through her powers, the girl was able to create and control a drone. But money was tight in Inyo and the girl had to get creative in order to make ends meet. In the end, they resorted to scamming people, with Dendon, the store owner who sold everything from food to weapons. Inyo has been trying to scam people for ages. He's found all sorts of ways to get 90% discounts, like stepping on poop, blowing up a grenade, or almost getting hit by boxes. But this time he decided to try something different. He took Zero with him and pretended she was his daughter. Everything seemed to be going well. He paid in full, until they walked out of the store and Zero used her drone to make the store sign hit her head. She even used fake blood to make it look real and they managed to get an extra discount. But they aren't bad people. They always try to do the right thing, as long as it's not money related, especially when it comes to people's lives. They once received a quest to save a woman known as the Saint, because she was taking care of orphan kids. The Saint went 8 times to Magmell with different teams and returned alone every single time. Not only she returned alive, but she also returned swimming in literal monster parts that could be sold for thousands. The woman decided to go another time, with another team, because she needed money to take care of the orphans. Inyo was forced to go there because Zero was worried the orphan kids might suffer if the Saint never comes back. But in the end, when they arrive at her location, they find out the Saint alone. She used her team as a meat shield and waited for them to die so she could defeat the monsters and get their body parts. Basically, she sacrifices everyone who joins her, then waits for someone to rescue her. She takes monster parts to sell and uses the money to help the orphan kids and improve her public image. She's just wasting everyone's lives to look good to the public. Inyo was always taught by Shuin that he shouldn't betray and sacrifice someone for his own goals. And so, he decides to pull out of the quest and leaves her to die to repay her sins. A few days later, Zero wakes up after a scary dream about her time being tortured by the old man. When she goes to wake up Inyo, she finds him already up and ready to go, something that was very unusual. She offers to make breakfast for him, but he tells her he doesn't need it and leaves to take care of some business. She was freaking out, and when she noticed the calendar with Shu written on it, she knew something was up. She invited all their close friends to get to the bottom of why Shu was acting so strangely, and what Shu meant. One of them asked if it was related to Shuin, so they all asked Zero how she met Inyo, and if she had ever heard of Shuin's master. But Zero said she had never met him before. She eagerly told her friend about her past and how she had met Inyo. Meanwhile, Inyo arrives at Shuin's house, where he occasionally cleans it up, expecting his master to someday come back. But when she returned home, she was surprised to see someone sitting in Inyo's chair. She was delighted to greet the person, but when the chair turned around, she was shocked to see the old man who had tortured her. She was about to cast her powers, but someone pushed her away from behind. Burton then began to play mind games with her, forcing her to remember the terrible suffering she had experienced at his hands. She's frozen with fear, unable to move, and the traumatic memories come flooding back. The cruel man holds up a menacing torture collar and orders her to put it on, but she refuses until he reveals a live image of one of her friends being attacked, and she's forced to accept her fate. Inyo returns home to find a video call waiting for him. On the other end is Burton. He explains with a sinister laugh that this is revenge for what Inyo had done before and shows his friends being approached by hooded people before they blow themselves up. The old man then reveals he will be waiting in the same facility if Inyo survives. Inyo turns around and sees a man behind him with an explosive monster on his head. Zero starts to recall her past as she enters the facility. She remembers how Burton pushed her to the brink of exhaustion, forcing her to fight monsters to draw her strongest power. She was filled with worry over Inyo, wondering if he was still alive after the explosion. Zero noticed some familiar faces among the other children as she looked around. She wondered if they were Latchers too, but one of the kids told her that the man had taken their powers away. Suddenly, men come and take the children away. She's all left alone and she tries to comfort her heart, repeating that Inyo will come to save her. However, Burton appears once again to manipulate her. He tells her that Inyo is already dead and shows the recording of the explosion. She breaks down in tears and screams after seeing it, remembering all the moments they spent together, and all the times they had fun and shared a smile. Meanwhile, Inyo appears and breaks into the facility, revealing that he managed to shield himself right before the explosion. He walks into a room filled with hooded people. The man uses a screen to convey how much he hated Inyo after he took Zero 4 years ago. The guy brags about how strong he is, but our body doesn't care. He just cares about fulfilling the promise to protect Zero. The old man tells everyone to attack Inyo, but our boy uses his powers to create floating boxes, allowing him to dodge everyone. Some pillars start moving, getting in his way, forcing him to get to the ground. The old man presses the remote control, making 3 attackers explode. Luckily, Inyo used his powers to shield himself from the explosion, but ends up being trapped under a boulder. The last attacker slowly approaches him and reveals her face. Shockingly, the attackers are the kids who got taken by the guards. The old man put monsters onto their heads using them as disposable explosives to kill Inyo. Inyo tries to stop it by attacking, but fails, only managing to cut the collar off. The last attacker explodes and leaves Inyo heavily. The old man decides to finish his vengeance and kill Inyo by stepping inside the room. Our boy gets up, determined to get Zero back, and creates a weapon to attack. Yet, the old man pierces his leg out of nowhere with a sword, revealing that he now has latcher powers. Burton explains he stole and absorbed every kid's powers to become a latcher, and now he wants to prove that he's way stronger than Inyo. Our boy tries to outsmart the old guy by creating a grenade, but Burton uses the remote control to make the collar next to Inyo explode. Burton starts beating him, bragging about his powers, and decides to use a spiked bat to torture Inyo to death. He attacks, but Inyo manages to stop it using his power to create metal armor around his chest. But Burton immediately hits him on the face and starts beating him left and right. Inyo tries to find a way to escape, and quickly realizes that he might have a way to be able to reach Zero. He creates a grenade and throws it at Burton, forcing him to swing it away. The explosion breaks out the windows, and he shouts for Zero. Upon hearing his words, she starts tearing down in happiness as she realizes that he's alive. Burton continues beating him and threatens to explode Zero, but Inyo manages to buy some time, and shouts to Zero to remember how they met. However, Burton quickly uses a sword and slashes him from behind. Zero's mind starts to get filled from memories of the day she was saved, on how he promised to protect her, give her a true place to stay, and how they became a family. At the same time, Inyo tries to crawl away, but he doesn't have enough strength. Burton tells him that he will free Zero, under the condition that Inyo kneels before him and recognizes his power. Inyo gets on his knees, and Zero starts begging him to not die for her. She suddenly starts to feel an urge of power overflowing through her body, and she breaks free from her chains and collar. Burton lifts his sword to slash Inyo's head, but at that moment, Zero's drone comes through the room and knocks him away. Determined, Inyo gets up and uses his power to immediately defeat the old guy. Zero uses her drone to take Inyo to her, and they get their happy reunion with him repeating the same words as when he saved her years ago. Suddenly, Burton appears and eats a monster fruit, unleashing a strange and powerful energy. He falls and transforms into a monster. He tries to slice the monster's head off, but it regenerates. Zero supports him to bait the monster to climb up the walls, and uses the fan in the roof to slice the monster in half. However, the monster is still up and running, using Lark's powers to create a hammer and dunk on Inyo. Our boy manages to dodge, flying on Zero's drone and summons 2 hands to destroy the monster and the entire facility. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.